say hello all of you who are listening on ACIM Gather. Thank you so much. And thank you all of you who are watching and listening to the live stream. That's amazing. And also now I'd like to thank anybody who has tuned into the YouTube video. We're so glad you're here. Watch all our YouTube videos. They're lovingly prepared for us by Reverend Kelly. And they're great. And there's, I don't know, there's a lot of them there now. Okay, so today's talk, Embracing Absolute Power. My title today, Embracing Absolute Power. There's an old saying that's been around for a long time. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. See, we all know this saying. Look that up. That's actually based on an English gentleman who was a member of the House of Lords, and his name was Lord Acton. He said that in 1887. And this is the entirety of the quotation. It says, "Power tends to corrupt. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. Great men are almost always bad men."
Ew.
Ooh.
Wow.
A pretty pessimistic attitude. And the idea was that as a person's power increases, their sense of morality decreases. Somehow that they rise above the laws or the norms of the land. And that's just really not A Course in Miracles. Okay? A Course in Miracles is really about us understanding that we do have absolute power. And it's certainly not going to corrupt us. A Course in Miracles says, all power is given you in earth and heaven. There is nothing that you cannot do. All power is given us, both here on earth and in heaven. Some people take that quote and just forget that it says on earth, and they think all power is given us in heaven and all power is given us in our divine state, and forget that the quotation actually says that all power is given to us here on earth as well. And I think that's a lot of what A Course in Miracles wants us to truly connect with and embrace. And I think we have to embrace that idea. And of course the first step in embracing it is welcoming it. But if we have vestiges of the idea that absolute power is going to corrupt us, then, we're probably a little hesitant. We're a little hesitant to really embrace power because it's going to be a bad thing, might be a bad thing. For those of you who, come here and participate or who have listened, you know that during my meditations I will frequently talk about just connecting to the totality of all the power in the universe, and to understand that we're connected to that there's no power in the universe anywhere that we do not have access to. And I get that from A Course in Miracles, and I've gotten that from my own sense of revelation and intuition, that we're always supposed to understand and realize that the totality of all the power in the universe is there. It is there for us, and I like to affirm that just about every time I meditate or pray. I want to feel that power. I want to have the connection to that power, to the greatest and to the best of my ability. And I understand that we have been indoctrinated, and I have indoctrinated myself in beliefs that say otherwise. So it's probably going to take a little bit of time for me to get used to this idea of ultimate absolute power being mine. So I need to practice it. And that's why I work it into so many of my meditations and so many of my prayers. And if I'm going to be a miraculous person, if I'm going to be a miracle worker and a healer, well then I have to really embrace that power and do what I can to keep moving towards that. Course in Miracles has all kinds of things in it that tell us of our power. Some of those Reverend Brad read in the reading there, some of the ones that I feel are just really significant. And this one is there. It's hard to recognize that thought and belief combine in a power surge that can literally move mountains. It appears at first glance that to believe such power about yourself is merely arrogant, but that is not the real reason that you don't believe in it. So A Course in Miracles is telling us that literally our thought and our belief can actually move mountains. And the reason that we don't want to believe that isn't really because we think it would be arrogant to do so. What it actually says is because we're afraid to do so. We're afraid to realize how powerful we are. We're scared of it. And so, just with anything that you have fear of or that you're scared of, I mean, the thing to do is to just keep practicing it. Just keep moving in that direction. Just keep opening yourself up to it. It must be that there is nothing there to fear. The fear has to be some illusion of the idea. Maybe part of that illusion is it's somehow going to corrupt us absolutely in order to believe that. So you have to move into it and open yourself up to it in order to let it not be fearful. So I challenge all of us and I commission all of us to the best of our ability just to keep opening up to that. Not to a little bit of power, but to all the power of the universe. Every bit of energy and light and power of the universe is ours. God shares it all. God shares him herself with their creation, and we have all that power as well. Another great statement about power. The power of faith is never recognized if it is placed in sin, but it is always recognized if it is placed in love. Why is it strange to you that faith can move mountains? This is indeed a little feat for such a power. So we think this idea of moving mountains is a big deal, and Jesus in A Course in Miracles is telling us actually that's a pretty small deal. That we actually could do way more. We could do everything. We can do anything. Anything and everything. Okay, let's look at the word power just for a minute. If you look up the definition of the word power, power always relates to the ability to do something. If you're powerful, you are doing things. You don't know your power until you have done something. Power does not just sit as a potential. Power is an active agent that is actually functioning and accomplishing things. And when A Course in Miracles talks about power, it's important for me to remember that, and I think A Course in Miracles talks to us a lot about doing things. That's actually that slogan that I'm so fond of for the Great Crusade that it tells us in chapter number 1. It says the slogan for the crusade is listen, learn, and do, and it emphasizes the do. Listen to my voice, learn to undo error, and do something to correct it. And then to really tell us how important the do is, it says the first two are not enough. So listen and learn aren't enough. You have to do. The first two are not enough. The real members of my party are active workers. In other words, the real members of Jesus' crusade are active doers. And that's where we will know our power, when we're actually doing. And if we can begin to embrace absolute power, think about all the amazing doing that we will have, that we will accomplish. You know, as I said, a lot of people, they're a little afraid of this, or they're a lot afraid of this. And when you talk to people, you can get yourself aware of it. You can just be aware of when you talk to people. People spend a lot of time arguing with you about their limitations, about what they can't do and why they can't do it. I spent a lot of that time. So, I mean, they'll talk to you, and I catch myself doing it. You know, it's a habit. I see it reflected. I catch myself doing it. I don't have enough time. I lack time. I would do that. I just really don't have enough time. My health isn't good enough to do that. I would do that. I'm not strong enough. My strength isn't enough. I don't have the energy to do that. All those kind of things. And then probably the most insidious one that you hear most often, I can't afford to do that. I don't have the money to do that. People are continually arguing for their limitations. We got to stop that. We just have to stop that. It's just so much more powerful to say, I choose not to do that. I choose not to do that. I just won't do it. I'm not doing that. I don't want to do that. I'm not guided to do that. That's so much more powerful. I hear that all the time. It came to mind this week with, or it was actually last week, with a woman, one of our members. She will forgive me if she listens to this, who come to the last couple of conferences that we've done. And I asked her some time ago if she wanted to come to the conference, but she thinks Boston. She told me Boston's really too far away, and it's going to be expensive for me to get there, and I really can't afford to come to Boston. Okay, now something in me knew that wasn't true. I just, it was hard for me to really get that. Been to the last couple. Really, it's that much more expensive to go to Boston than it was to come to Las Vegas. I just didn't really figure. Well, that's okay. And she said it to me a couple of times, and then I called her up not that long ago because I like to call members up on their birthdays, and she talked to me about a trip she's taking to India, and I'm thinking, oh, India wasn't too expensive, but Boston was. I got it. So we do this all the time. We think these are valuable excuses, or they're excuses that everybody's going to believe. We don't really want to tell the person, I just don't really want to do that because we're afraid we're going to hurt their feelings. So instead, we hurt ourselves by buying into a belief in lack and reinforcing it. Get over it. Tell me you just don't want to do it. I just don't want to do it. Don't tell me you can't. Don't argue for your limitations ever. Because you just might win that argument and you don't want to. You really don't want to win the argument that you don't have the time, that you don't have the health, that you don't have the energy, that you don't have the strength, and you certainly don't want to win the argument that you don't have the money. You just don't want to do it. That's just a way more powerful stance to take. And it's true. The truth is, we find the money to do the things that we are guided to do, or that we really want to do. We find a way to do it. We ask people for a loan. We do it. We do the things that we really want to do. We figure out a way to do them. And the things that we don't want to do, we don't have to do. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. Can't be true. Some years ago, not that long ago, there was a very popular book called Power versus Force. And it was written by David Hawkins, and it really talks about the difference between power and force, that they're two very different things. So it's absolute force that corrupts absolutely. It's not absolute power. Absolute force, if you're like forcing it and struggling with it, and you're going to go to every end to struggle and force it and push it, yeah, you don't want to do that. That's going to hurt you. But power is divine. Power is transcendent. Power is all throughout the universe, and power flows through us. Absolute power heals absolutely. Absolute power makes everything possible. It's definitely something that we want. We don't want to force things. We just want power to flow through us so that we can do and accomplish all that the divine in us would do and accomplish. And what are those things? Well, A Course in Miracles says, your holiness then can remove all pain, can end all sorrow, can solve all problems. It can do so in connection with yourself and with anyone else. It is equal in its power to help anyone because it is equal in its power to save anyone. Our holiness can do anything, can do everything, and it can especially do anything and everything in the realm of healing. We can heal everything. We can heal all the pain, all the sorrow. We can solve all the problems of the world. In fact, we are. We are doing that. And I think when you really connect with that, when you embrace that power, you begin to see that actually happening in the world. I become more and more aware of how the world is just healing and solving its problems on its own, but through the work I believe that we are all doing, connecting with our divinity. We got a conference coming up in Boston next year, and that's about power. The title of that, the theme of that is The Power to Heal. And the quotation that is focused on is, nothing will be beyond your healing power because nothing will be denied your simple request. So again, the most obvious place to do and to apply our power and to channel our powerful energy is in healing. And I think that's what's great about the healing team and the healing work that we do. But I think that's what's great about all of us miracles people and New Age people, hopefully, is that we just understand just by are looking at things with our new perspective and with our powerful perspective and with the perspective of us being divine, holy children of God, when we just look at things that way and engage with the thought system, our healed mind becomes a healing influence on those issues and those things. And if we are guided to do a worldly thing in order to help that healing manifest in some way, then we will be guided to. But the most important thing is just that we keep our mind high and we keep our connection to power strong and we keep embracing it and working towards it and not be afraid of it, and to understand that it is not force. It's a divine energy that is powerful and that is there. And another thing that helps me with this is, again, and it's a growing realization, is that this divine power, it isn't an external thing that we're drawing into us. It's not out there and we bring it in. That divine power, it is us. It's us. We're not bringing something from the outside in. We're just realizing who and what we are. We are the totality of that light, of that love, of that power. We are that essence that removes all pain and ends all sorrow and solves all problem. And we just do that by our very nature, and we do that so efficiently when we have truly embraced ultimate power, fearlessly, which is the only way it can be embraced, fearlessly. So we keep moving towards that. And I think that in that realization, as you begin to embrace it and feel it, that you actually are the power itself, that you're not bringing something to you, that it is actually you. And that goes right along with realizing that you're actually everything. That there isn't anything really external to you anywhere. And that's true on earth and in heaven. We're everything here as well. As I frequently like to say, when A Course in Miracles talks about our body, yeah, we think about this, this meat thing that we walk around in that seems to encase our brain. But the entire world is a symbolic representation of ourselves. The entire world is our body. There is nothing outside of us. It is all us. All the power in the universe is us. All the manifested universe is us. It's all us. Course in Miracles says it really clearly. Nothing around you but is part of you. This is not some strange Reverend Tony Ponticello hallucination. It's actually in the material itself. Nothing around you but is part of you. Look on it lovingly and see the light of heaven in it. Look on everything lovingly, even those things that bother us, because the light of heaven is in it, and it is us. And when we can embrace it and embrace our power at the same time, we will become the healing of it, if it indeed is something that needs to be healed. So it isn't about accessing the power. It's about realizing there is no power that actually isn't us. We are that ability to do. We are that ability to heal. So just take this day, if you would, and play with these ideas and realize that absolute power heals everything absolutely. That's it. Thank you.